Vladimir Putin is actively looking for ways to hold negotiations to end the war in Ukraine, since the mediation efforts of the United States of America have not yielded any results. The Russian invasion of Ukraine is nearing its end. This statement was made yesterday by Russian President Vladimir Putin. In addition, Putin unexpectedly referred to the president of Ukraine, quote, as Mr. Zelensky, and admitted that he is ready to hold direct talks with Kyiv at any time. And he hinted that Trump's mediation efforts will no longer be of any use. At the same time, Vladimir Putin has already made it clear that the Kremlin is disrupting the prisoner exchange that was planned during the ceasefire, and Putin is also threatening to crush the armed forces of Ukraine. But after the parade in Moscow on May 9th, it became known that Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico did, in fact, deliver a message from Volodymyr Zelensky to Vladimir Putin. After that, Fico explained that now Putin is waiting for a phone call from the president of Ukraine to hold direct negotiations. And now Putin is even naming a specific person in Europe who should become the new mediator. My name is Alexei Pechi. Let's discuss this topic together, but before we start, I'd like to ask you to subscribe to this YouTube channel and like this episode. Leave any comment under this video and subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pechi News. The link is in the description of this video. There we publish breaking news as it comes in. So, the Russian invasion of Ukraine is coming to an end, said Russian President Vladimir Putin. The dictator made this remark while explaining to journalists what, in his opinion, led to the war in the first place. Putin says the conflict has lasted 5 years. This is just the full-scale phase. Because the leaders of the globalist wing of the Western elites using Ukrainians to fight against Russia insisted that Kyiv not sign the peace agreement that was supposedly reached between the Russian and Ukrainian delegations in Istanbul in 2022 next, are Putin's words verbatim. Well, everyone promised to help Ukraine and started escalating the confrontation with Russia, which continues to this day. I think it's coming to an end, but still, this is a serious matter. And also, Putin stated that the Victory Day parade on May 9 took place without military equipment for the first time since 2007. Not for security reasons, not because of a threat from Ukraine, and not because Vladimir Putin himself was scared or uneasy. No, and I quote, «One in these бичи ди по». Прежде всего, потому что вооружен... All forces must focus their attention on the final defeat of the enemy as part of the special military operation. Well then, here's the question. Is it really possible that there's not enough equipment in vast Russia for both the parade and the war? It's funny that Vladimir Putin stated that the decision not to have military equipment at the parade and the decision to disable mobile communications in Moscow were made much earlier than all the provocative statements that have been made. Well, supposedly this is about President Zelensky's warning that Kyiv will respond in kind to Russian strikes and that on May 9th Ukrainian drones might join the parade on Red Square. And here's the inconsistency, because on the one hand, Vladimir Putin insists that the victory parade in Moscow was scaled down not because of threats from Ukraine, but on the other hand, almost in the same breath, he says that he asked not only the US, but also China and India to influence Volodymyr Zelensky so that Kyiv would not attack Moscow on May 9th. We started working with our main partners and friends, first of all with our friends from China, from India, and with some other countries. Moscow painted a picture and warned of a retaliatory strike on the capital of Ukraine. I mean that all the command and decision-making centers in Kyiv are located in close proximity to the diplomatic institutions of a number of countries. There are several dozen of them there. Well, then Vladimir Putin unexpectedly started talking about being ready to hold negotiations with Zelensky. First, Putin stated that Trump, of course, wants to end the war as soon as possible, but he won't be able to help anymore because this is a matter between Ukraine and Russia. And then he said that he would like to see former German Chancellor Gerhard Schröder as a mediator from Europe. But today, the German government has already rejected Putin's proposal to appoint Schröder as a mediator in the negotiations between Russia and Ukraine. In Germany, they immediately stated that these are all sham proposals from Moscow, which are part of Russia's hybrid strategy. Such initiatives are not trustworthy since the Kremlin has not changed its demands on Ukraine. Also, the German leadership insists that Putin should first extend the 3-day truce announced by American President Donald Trump if he is truly interested in improving relations with Europe. And here I would like to remind you that 82-year-old Gerhard Schröder, who led the German government from 1998 to 2005, has repeatedly been criticized for his friendship with Vladimir Putin and for lobbying on behalf of Russian oil and gas companies. However, when Putin launched a full-scale war against Ukraine, he called it a mistake and even went to Moscow with some kind of peace plan. But in fact, the initiative, which was ultimately rejected, assumed that Ukraine would give up joining NATO, officially hand over Crimea to Russia, but keep Donbas, provided Russian became the second official language there. That's the kind of peacemaker Schröder is. But the very fact that Vladimir Putin is still looking for negotiation options is interesting. And here details emerge about how Zelensky could have sent a message to Vladimir Putin. It was previously reported that the Prime Minister of Slovakia, Robert Fico, would deliver a message from Zelensky to Putin during his visit to Moscow. This was stated by the State Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Slovakia, Rostislav Kovanec. In response, Fico expected an answer from Putin with information on how the Russian president sees efforts to end the war. And it is important to remember that Zelensky actually met with Robert Fico on the eve of his trip to Moscow in Yerevan, where the European Political Community Summit was taking place. And here I want to show you a short video that demonstrates how Vladimir Putin's rhetoric has actually changed. This is very telling. Because in 2022 he was calling the authorities in Ukraine a gang. And yesterday, on May 9th, he suddenly stated that he was ready for negotiations with Mr. Zelensky.
Once again, I appeal to the servicemen of the armed forces of Ukraine. Take power into your own hands. It seems reaching an agreement with you will be easier than with the drug addicts and neo-Nazis entrenched in Kiev.
The Ukrainian side, Mr. Zelensky, is ready to hold a personal meeting. Yes, I heard that. And today Robert Fico says that after talking with Putin, he is sure that Zelensky should call the Russian dictator Putin himself if he is interested in negotiations to end the war. Next is a quote from Fico. In Moscow, I delivered a message to Putin. Zelensky told me in Armenia during our personal meeting that he is ready to meet with Vladimir Putin in any format. If the Ukrainian president is interested in a meeting, he should contact his Russian counterpart by phone. I called a ceasefire absolutely necessary to make room for what is absolutely essential: diplomatic efforts, dialogue, negotiations, which are 1,000 times more useful than mutual killing. Well, let's see now which direction these negotiations will go, because it's obvious that they are changing right now. Friends, I'll leave it at that for now, but I want to immediately remind the Ukrainian-speaking audience of this YouTube channel that I have launched a completely new, exclusively Ukrainian-language YouTube channel where every evening we sum up the day's events with a focus specifically on the Ukrainian agenda. So I'll leave a link in the pinned comment to this video and in the description for this episode. A link to the new Ukrainian language YouTube channel. Go check it out and subscribe if you want to see the news in Ukrainian. In the comments under this video, write your opinion, your conclusions, and of course, subscribe to this YouTube channel. Give this episode a like. And if you want to support the work of this YouTube channel, you can do so financially with any donation or a paid membership. You can do this through the links and details in the description of this video or by using the QR code on your screens. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.